A woman in a faded hoodie sits motionless in seat 14A as two F-16 fighter jets suddenly appear outside the cabin windows. Passengers panic. Flight attendants force smiles. But she doesn't move, because she recognizes the formation. When encrypted military chatter accidentally leaks through the speakers, calling a code name that shouldn't exist anymore, Night Falcon, her fingers tighten around a scorched dog tag hidden in her bag. The tag from a pilot who officially died 3 years ago. Then 3 black stealth drones emerge from the clouds, hunting. Not the plane. And in that moment, the quiet woman everyone ignored becomes the only person who can save 200 lives. What happens next reveals why some legends are buried, and why the sky never forgets them. Before we dive in, tell us in comments where in the world you are watching from. The cabin was quiet, too quiet for a midday flight cruising at 37,000 feet. Passengers scrolled through phones, dozed against windows, or sipped lukewarm coffee without a second thought. Just another Tuesday in the sky. But then something shifted. A shadow flickered across the left side of the plane, long and deliberate, moving in perfect sync with the aircraft. Then another on the right. 2 F-16 fighter jets, sleek, menacing, impossibly close, materialized just beyond the cabin windows like silent predators flanking their prey. A few heads turned. Someone pointed. A teenager pressed his face to the glass, eyes wide with excitement. Most passengers exchanged glances, the kind that said probably just an escort drill or maybe they're protecting someone important. They shrugged it off, returned to their screens, their coffee, their comfortable assumption that nothing extraordinary ever happens on flights like these. But one woman didn't shrug. She sat 3 rows from the back, hood pulled low over dark hair, arms folded loosely across her chest. Her posture was casual, almost too casual, like someone deliberately practicing invisibility. While others craned their necks toward the windows, she stayed perfectly still. Her eyes, though, told a different story. They tracked the movement of those jets with surgical precision, noting the angle of their wings, the spacing between them, the way they adjusted altitude in micro-corrections that most wouldn't even register. This wasn't routine. This wasn't protection. This was pattern recognition for something else entirely. Then it happened. A burst of static crackled through the cabin speakers, brief, distorted, accidental. Most passengers barely noticed. But embedded in that static was a phrase, clipped in military: Night wing, maintain pattern, unknown threat near civilian aircraft. The words hung in the air for half a second before dissolving back into silence. The woman's jaw tightened. Her fingers, resting on her armrest, curled just slightly. She didn't look around. She didn't react outwardly. But something in her shifted, a coiled readiness, like a blade sliding quietly from its sheath. Everyone else kept scrolling, kept sipping, kept assuming safety. She knew better. Because she'd heard that call sign before. And she knew exactly what it meant when fighter jets didn't just escort, they hunted. Her name was Maya Torin, though no one on that plane knew it. Late 30s, unremarkable in every visible way, faded hoodie, worn jeans, a travel backpack wedged under the seat in front of her. She looked like someone who'd been awake too long, traveled too far, carried too much weight that had nothing to do with luggage. The kind of tired that settles into your bones and stays there. Other passengers might have mistaken her stillness for anxiety, her silence for fear. They wouldn't have been entirely wrong. But they would have missed everything that mattered. While the woman beside her nervously tapped her phone screen and the man across the aisle muttered complaints about delays, Maya's fingers rested lightly on the armrest. Not gripping. Measuring. Feeling the subtle hum of engine vibrations through metal and foam, registering every microsecond shift in rhythm. Her breathing was slow, controlled, automatic. The kind of breathing you don't think about anymore because your body learned it under pressure so extreme that thought becomes a luxury you can't afford. She watched the cabin pressure gauge near the galley without turning her head. She counted throttle adjustments from the escort jets by sound alone, each tiny change in pitch telling her whether they were defensive or preparing for engagement. She did all of this without realizing she was doing it. Muscle memory doesn't ask permission. It just runs. A teenager 2 rows up leaned toward his friend, nodding in her direction with a smirk. Bet she's never even flown anything bigger than a toy drone, he whispered, loud enough for her to hear. His friend laughed. Maya didn't react. Didn't correct him. Didn't explain that she'd logged over 2,000 hours in aircraft most people would never see on radar, let alone in daylight. She just kept her hood up and her breathing steady, because invisibility had kept her alive longer than pride ever could. Inside her backpack, tucked beneath a water bottle and a paperback she wasn't reading, lay a single black metal dog tag. The edges were scorched, blackened from heat that should have melted it entirely. The emblem stamped into its surface had faded almost beyond recognition, wings wrapped around a crescent moon, the insignia of a program that never appeared in official records, never made it into defense budgets, never admitted it existed at all. A program where pilots didn't just fly missions. They became ghosts. And Maya had been the best of them. Her call sign had been Night Falcon. Past tense. Because according to every file that mattered, Maya Torrin died 3 years ago in a training accident that was never investigated and never explained. Yet here she sat, feeling fighter jets hunt something in the sky around her, wondering if the world she'd left behind had finally come looking for answers. The intercom crackled again, longer this time, harsher. The captain's voice came through, but it wasn't the smooth, rehearsed confidence passengers expect at cruising altitude. It wavered. Just slightly. Just enough. Folks, we're experiencing some minor technical communications interference. Nothing to worry about. We'll have you on the ground shortly. The words were right. The delivery wasn't. Before anyone could process it, another burst of static ripped through the speakers, raw, unfiltered, military-grade chatter bleeding into civilian airspace where it absolutely should not be. Night Wing 2, fuel light on, stabilizer jittering, request immediate guidance. The voice was clipped, professional, urgent. Then silence. Dead air. The cabin erupted in nervous murmurs. A woman 3 rows ahead clutched her husband's arm. The teenager who joked about toy drones wasn't smiling anymore. Flight attendants moved quickly down the aisle, forcing tight smiles, offering water, repeating practiced reassurances that everything was fine, everything was under control. But Maya's eyes had gone sharp, laser-focused on something no one else could see. That voice. She knew that voice. Lieutenant Cade Ashford. Call sign Viper. She trained him herself, 6 years ago, in simulators that didn't officially exist, running night operations so classified they didn't even get code names. He was good. Damn good. And if his voice sounded like that, tight, clipped, asking for guidance, then something had gone catastrophically wrong. Then the F-16 on the right side dipped its wing. Not a casual adjustment. Not turbulence. A deliberate, controlled roll, 5 degrees, hold, return. It was a signal. A very specific signal used only in Black Ops infiltration emergencies when verbal communication was compromised. It meant, hostile presence confirmed, unknown origin, closing fast. Maya's pulse didn't spike. It steadied. Her body recognized the rhythm of danger before her mind even named it. Something was out there. Something that shouldn't exist in this airspace, at this altitude, near a civilian aircraft full of people who had no idea they'd just become collateral in someone else's war. She stood. Slow. Deliberate. No sudden movements. A flight attendant appeared instantly, blocking the aisle with a professional smile that didn't reach her eyes. Please return to your seat. We're experiencing minor turbulence. I need to get to your cockpit, Maya said quietly. Her tone wasn't aggressive. It was matter-of-fact. The kind of calm that comes from knowing exactly how bad things are and exactly what needs to happen next. Right now. The attendant's smile tightened. She glanced toward the cockpit door, then back at Maya, scanning her hoodie, her worn jeans, her tired face. I'm sorry, but that's not possible. Federal regulations. Maya reached into her pocket. Slowly. Carefully. She pulled out the scorched black dog tag, holding it flat in her palm where only the attendant could see. The emblem was faded, but the wings and crescent moon were still visible. So was the serial number etched beneath it. Numbers that matched no public registry, no official database, no record that anyone outside a very small circle would ever recognize. The attendant's eyes dropped to the tag. Her face went pale. Her smile vanished. She stared at Maya for 3 long seconds, processing something she clearly wasn't supposed to know existed. Then she stepped aside without another word. Maya pushed through the cockpit door. The captain, graying hair, 20+ years of commercial flight etched into the lines around his eyes, glanced up sharply, annoyance flashing across his face. You can't be in here, but before he could finish, the radio panel lit up like a Christmas tree. Red alerts cascading down the screen. Encrypted military channels flooding in with data that shouldn't be appearing on civilian equipment. Unknown aircraft. No transponders. No radar signatures. Flight behavior inconsistent with any known civilian or military protocol. The co-pilot leaned forward, voice tight. Sir, we've got 4 unidentified contacts closing from the northwest. Speed erratic. Altitude shifting every 10 seconds. The captain's jaw clenched. He reached for the radio, but before he could transmit, the F-16 pilot's voice came through again, rawer this time, stripped of protocol. Control, requesting Night Falcon presence. If she's out there, we need her now. The words hung in the air like smoke. The captain turned slowly toward Maya, eyes narrowing, scanning her face as if seeing her for the first time. His voice dropped. Who, exactly, are you? Maya met his gaze without flinching. When she spoke, her voice was different, no longer the quiet, invisible woman in the hoodie. It was sharp. Clipped. Carrying the weight of years spent in cockpits where hesitation meant death. Former Night Operations Test Pilot. Call sign Night Falcon. The captain's face went slack. The co-pilot's hands froze over the controls. Outside, the F-16 Escorts shifted formation, simultaneously, fluidly, as if responding to something they'd been waiting for. Not orders. Presence. Maya reached for the spare headset hanging beside the captain's seat. She didn't ask permission. She put it on, adjusted the MIC, and keyed into the encrypted military channel with muscle memory that hadn't faded despite 3 years of silence. The moment she spoke, everything changed. Her voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Night Wing 2, stabilize your right rudder by 2 degrees and stop fighting the wind shear. You're overcorrecting and burning fuel you don't have. Silence. Then, copy, Night Falcon. Adjusting now. The jet steadied instantly. The jittering stopped. The fuel light held. The captain stared at her like she just materialized out of thin air. The co-pilot's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Maya ignored them both. She was already scanning the radar, tracking the unidentified contacts, calculating approach vectors and intercept windows in her head faster than the instruments could display them. The woman who'd sat quietly in coach, invisible and unremarkable, was gone. In her place stood someone who'd flown missions that didn't exist, made decisions that saved lives no one knew were in danger, and carried a call sign that still made veteran pilots straighten their spines when they heard it. The escorts outside weren't just responding to her voice. They were remembering what Night Falcon meant. And so was she. They came through the clouds like shadows given form, 3 angular, obsidian black aircraft that didn't move like anything built for human pilots. No running lights. No markings. No transponders broadcasting friendly identification. They sliced through the air with a predatory precision that made the F-16s look slow and clumsy by comparison. The captain's breath caught. What the hell are those? His voice cracked at the edges. The co-pilot just shook his head, unable to process what his eyes were telling him. Passengers near the windows started pointing, confusion turning to fear as the shapes drew closer, their wingspans impossibly sharp, their silhouettes wrong in ways that violated every rule of aerodynamics they thought they understood. But Maya didn't flinch. She recognized them instantly. Nightshade units. Unmanned prototypes built from a stolen version of her own night combat AI project. Code she'd written, systems she'd designed, algorithms meant to hunt targets in complete darkness where human reaction time became a fatal liability. They were supposed to have been destroyed. Decommissioned. Erased from every server and blueprint after the program was shut down under circumstances no one ever explained to her. Yet here they were. Reactivated. Reprogrammed. And closing fast on a civilian aircraft with surgical intent. Maya's jaw tightened. Someone had pointed them here. Someone knew exactly where she was. And they weren't trying to capture her. They were trying to erase the one person who knew how these machines thought. The radio exploded with panic. Night Wing 1, contact on my 6, moving at Mach 1.2, I can't shake it. One of the F-16 pilots yanked his stick hard left, nearly stalling as a Nightshade drone mirrored his movement with inhuman precision, staying locked 200 meters behind him like a shark circling wounded prey. The second escort tried to engage, but the drones split formation, one climbing vertical, one dropping low, one holding center, executing a pattern Maya had designed 5 years ago for overwhelming multiple targets simultaneously. They weren't reacting. They were predicting. And they were winning. Maya's hand shot to the comm switch. Her voice cut through the chaos like a blade. Night Wing 1 and 2, cease evasive maneuvers and listen to me now. The authority in her tone left no room for debate. Both pilots went silent. Night Wing 1, drop altitude 3,000 feet and slide under the civilian aircraft. Use our shadow. Night Wing 2, pull wide right, 15 degrees, maintain speed but stop trying to outrun them, you can't. She paused, calculating vectors in her head faster than the radar could refresh. Execute counter pattern Delta 7. They'll anticipate your moves because they're running my old code. So we're going to feed them the wrong inputs. The captain stared at her, mouth half open. The co-pilot gripped his armrest so hard his knuckles went white. Outside, the F-16s obeyed without question. The civilian jet, a lumbering Airbus A320 built for comfort, not combat, began moving like part of a coordinated military formation. Not because the captain was doing anything different, but because Maya's voice had turned 3 separate aircraft into a single tactical unit, rewriting the rules of engagement in real time. And the Nightshade drones hesitated. Just for half a second. Just long enough for Maya to see the flaw in their reprogramming. They expected her to run. They didn't expect her to hunt back. Maya's hand moved to the Scorched Dog tag still clipped to her belt loop. She unhooked it, turned it over in her palm, and pressed her thumb against the edge where the metal had melted and fused into something that looked like damage but wasn't. A hidden biometric sensor. One that most people would never notice. One that responded only to her. The tag pulsed once, silent, invisible, and a dormant encrypted command channel hummed to life in her headset. A frequency that hadn't been active in 3 years. A channel that existed outside official military networks, buried so deep in classified architecture that even the Pentagon couldn't trace it. This was the Night Falcon override. The failsafe built into every system she'd ever touched. And she was about to find out if whoever reactivated those drones had been stupid enough to leave it intact. She keyed the MIC. Her voice dropped into a rhythm she hadn't used since the night everything fell apart. Clipped, precise, layered with command codes embedded in syntax only Night Falcon squadron leaders ever learned. Nightshade Network, Falcon Directive. Stand down. Override authority active. Protect civilian craft. Obey command structure. The words weren't just instructions. They were a linguistic key, built from phonetic patterns and tonal shifts that triggered hardwired protocols in the drone's AI cores. Protocols she'd written herself. Protocols designed to recognize her voice even if everything else was stripped away. The Nightshade units hesitated. Their flight paths stuttered, sharp, unnatural pauses mid-maneuver that no human pilot could replicate. Then, one by one, they folded their wings inward like predatory birds pulling back from a kill. Their engines dimmed. Their targeting systems went dark. And they fell away into the clouds below, not crashing but descending in controlled spirals, becoming shadows that dissolved into gray nothing. Gone. The sky was empty again. Silent. The cockpit went still. Radio chatter cut off entirely. Even the background hum of encrypted military channels faded into nothing. Then, barely above a whisper, one of the F-16 pilots broke the silence. His voice was young. Shaken. Reverent. Night Falcon, we thought you died. Maya closed her eyes. Her hand tightened around the dog tag. When she spoke, her voice was softer, stripped of command, carrying something closer to grief. So did I. The jet diverted to a military airfield 20 miles outside the original destination. No explanation given. No protests from passengers who were too rattled to care where they landed as long as it was solid ground. The captain guided the aircraft down with hands that still trembled slightly, wheels kissing tarmac with the kind of smoothness that comes from decades of muscle memory overriding adrenaline. The cabin erupted in applause, grateful, relieved, oblivious. They clapped for the crew. They clapped for survival. They clapped because that's what people do when fear finally lets go. Not one of them knew their lives had been saved by the quiet woman in seat 14A who never said a word, never stood up for recognition, never asked for anything except to be left alone. As the plane taxied toward the terminal, the 2 F-16 Escorts peeled off in tight formation, climbing back toward open sky. Standard procedure. Mission complete. But then something happened that wasn't standard at all. They returned, dropping low, flanking the aircraft one final time. And then, simultaneously, both jets tilted their wings in a slow, deliberate roll. It was a formal salute. The kind reserved for legendary aviators. The kind given only when words aren't enough. Only one person on that plane understood what it meant. Maya pressed her forehead against the window, watching the jets climb away for the last time, and felt something crack open inside her chest that she'd kept sealed for 3 years. The aircraft door opened. Maya stepped onto the tarmac, backpack slung over one shoulder, hood still pulled low. 2 officers in dark uniforms waited at the bottom of the stairs, standing at attention. The older one nodded once. "Welcome back, Night Falcon." She didn't answer. Just touched the Scorched Dog tag at her belt, feeling its weight, its history, its refusal to let her disappear completely. Some heroes return with parades and medals. Some return quietly, stepping out of shadows they were never supposed to survive. And some never wanted to return at all. But the sky remembers them anyway.